So I did my assignment on the struggle for reform in the Ottoman Empire. Um, what made leaders in these countries promote changes towards modernization? The countries were very underdeveloped, not underdeveloped, but they didn't really promote a modern culture. They still followed the traditional ways of doing things with finance and economically in total. Modernization for the Ottoman Empire meant that Ottoman citizens were to be perfectly equal before the law, regardless of race or creed. That was one change. Another change was the introduction of a new legal code that was distinct from the Islamic Sharia. And they also wanted to regenerate the nation's strength. And by doing this, they introduced new military schools with foreign instructors in order to show advancements. They also modernized the armed forces. They modernized elementary and secondary education. Who was against the changes, the traditions that the empire was used to following. They were used to following them. The changes would be difficult to achieve, given that the modern ideas were a foreign concept to them. Reforms were also very expensive. They didn't really have the finance to do it. It was the Ottoman Empire's greatest weakness, actually, that it was a primary reason they failed to match Europe. Some drawbacks for the newly modified economic structures were that the new wealth that was accrued was basically for foreigners. They benefited from it instead of the Ottoman citizens. Another drawback was that it was the ending of a traditional system where government monopolies eliminated the principal source of the state revenues. So that made it difficult for them to have success. Europe was promoting a lot of the modernization. They were in agreement with it because they were just working hand in hand with the Ottoman Empire in order for them to succeed. But the Ottoman Empire had suffered a series of humiliations at the hands of the European powers, which was kind of a drawback for the empire itself. Abdul Hamid, he was also promoting the modernization. He was a very hard-headed leader, though, but he needed to accept the fact that Europe was a really good example to learn from in order to have success in modernization. People against modernization in the Ottoman Empire, the religious authorities tried to fight the demotion of the Sharia, but it didn't really go well. Russia also decided to pull out of the agreement after one of the wars broke out. Society that gained from the process of this modernization were the children, definitely. The education for them was expanded. The spread of literacy and the growth of higher education and the expansion of printing transformed the intellectual and cultural life of the cities. Personally, I think in the long run, the modernization and the loan for 55 million francs from the British and the French bank eventually would put them in debt. I don't think that benefited them. It only took 2 decades for that debt and bankruptcy to happen. So I think that didn't really help out. But I think that the modernization of schools and learning was beneficial for the empire. But I also think that the debt with Europe caused reliance on Europe, which in the long run made it more difficult for them to have success on their own.